Welcome back to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get. Today, we're sitting down with another 20 mailbag questions that we've received about movies or TV. I'm Megan, and with me today are Casey and Adam.
So the way that this episode is going to work is that we're sitting down with a list of questions from King of Rot about the Mike Flanagan Netflix series. Remember that everyone has to answer each question, but whoever reads it out loud has to answer it first. Oh, that's so cruel, Adam.
So King of Rot says, because we got this list in a long email, he says, these questions are only about Mike Flanagan's Netflix shows, not his films. This is because I've not seen any of his films as of writing these questions. As a reminder, the shows in question are The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, The Midnight Club, and The Fall of the House of Usher. So we've seen all of them, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Obsessed. Every time anyone comes out, I'm stoked.
Yeah.
Like,
I have not seen the last 3 episodes of The Midnight Club.
what the fuck, dude?
I had to bail on it. We'll get into it later.
Okay. Fine. So let's roll for initiative for the first set of questions.
All righty.
Oh my God, I don't have dice ready.
Casey.
I'm fucking up already. Hold on. Okay. 12. I feel like I always roll 12.
That's a damn lie. You rarely roll double digits.
That's true. If I roll double digits, it's 12.
I got a 10.
I got a 17. So I guess I will go first and I will start asking questions. All right. So first question is, how would you rank Mike Flanagan's shows from most to least favorite? So for the ones that are in question, it's here's the thing. It's going to be a weird way of doing this because the Haunting of Hill House was like my absolute favorite introduction into these, and I will rewatch it over and over again. So rewatchability, it's my number one. But technically, if I'm going to do it in legitimate order of favorites, Fall of the House of Usher is my number one, followed by Haunting of Hill House, followed by Midnight Mass, then Bly Manor, and then Midnight Club. Midnight Club's at my bottom.
Fair.
Yeah. I liked it, but it just didn't like hit the same notes and tones that the other ones did for me.
It was also different because it was the only one that was supposed to have a season 2. And they were in pre-production when Mike Flanagan jumped ship from Netflix to Amazon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what happened. All right. Well, am I next? I'm next, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Haunting of Hill House, he started off hot. It was phenomenal. It stayed my favorite through the whole list. Fall of the House of Usher came in at the end and it was really good. It is just shy third because Haunting of Bly Manor is second. So Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, Fall of the House of Usher, Midnight Mass, and Midnight Club. Midnight Club is last for me too.
Yeah.
I
Adam?
gotta say, Midnight Mass is my favorite. It was such a Stephen King story, and it was such I am a sucker for religious horror in the first place, and also for the like everyone's trapped as the slow creeping in dread approaches. Like one of my favorite movies, I'm not saying it's a great movie, one of my favorite movies is 30 Days of Night, and that's what this felt like for the last few episodes. So I don't know, I loved it. I also like when vampires are scary, so I mean, I guess spoiler alert, but and then The Haunting of Hill House was such a close second. And then Fall of the House of Usher was so good. It was I'm a big Edgar Allan Poe fan, or I was when I was younger anyway. The Black Cat episode was the only one that kind of was a wet fart for me, but the rest of it was just beautiful. And then Haunting of Bly Manor is fourth, not because it's bad, but because everything else is so great. It is also good. And then, like I said, I didn't finish the Midnight Club, so I don't feel like I can really comment on it, but it would probably be fifth. It felt like Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, it had like Are You Afraid of the Dark vibes in terms of like you just needed them to say that, like the words. That's, you know what I mean? Like, and they basically did have like their intro of like, I'm trying to remember what the fucking intro was for that show, like the Midnight Society or whatever it is. What is that saying that they use?
Oh, in Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, like I hereby something on the Midnight Society, and then all that stuff, right? They kind of say something similar to that. Anyways.
I don't remember.
But yeah. All right. Next question. Do you agree with Hugh, so the father in The Haunting of Hill House, decision to keep his wife's actions a secret. I mean, to be fair, yes, because they're children, but like also no. I don't know how to describe that one, because like, yes, like the secrets that were kept were pretty fucked up from the kids, but like they're kids and they're children. So you're gonna, I don't know. I'm not a parent, so I can't really speak to how parenting works, but I just feel like if it's something that will ruin your children's lives, like it'll be let's keep this to ourselves for a little minute. And then when you're older, I'll tell you. And he just happened to die before being able to tell him,
Yeah.
Like that's how I feel about it anyways. What about you, Casey?
Yeah, I think I think they got extra fucked up because he made that call. So I think
Yeah, you got wrong.
as much as it's fucked up that they would know everything, I think it was made worse.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that okay, so I don't have my own kids, but I have helped raise a couple.
That's fair.
And when something big and dark and traumatizing happens, as life hits, you tend to keep the really nasty stuff from your kids until they reach emotional maturity, right? Which I would say is anywhere between 17 and 24, depending on the kid. All of these actors, all of these characters were in their 30s. Yeah, he held on to the secret too long.
Yeah.
So protect the child, tell the adult, right? Like, yeah. Anyways, Megan, I looked it up. Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society.
Yes, there it is.
That was going to drive me nuts. That's why I got real quiet there for a minute. I was punching my brain trying to figure out.
I wanted to Google it, but sometimes I don't like having to tacky tack on my keyboard while I'm have my microphone on. But yeah, I think I'm going to start every D&D campaign now with that. Submitted for approval of the Midnight Society. And it's literally called the Midnight Club. You know what I mean? Like, you can't tell me that the inspiration was not taken.
Especially because it's based on a series or on a book, I think, called The Midnight Club that came out in the early to mid 90s, written by Christopher Pike.
Yeah.
And he also did a bunch of other just teen horror, YA, thriller stuff from the early 90s. A lot of it's pretty tame by today's standards, but he did a bunch of short stories, which were pretty brutal. And that's where all of these stories come from in the Midnight Club, because that the idea of telling stories is not a part of the original novelization, right? The first thing that he wrote. So
fair enough.
Kind of a blending.
All right, next question. Did you notice the 17-minute long take in the middle of the 6th episode of Haunting of Hill House? And I'm assuming that they're referencing, because without looking it up, I'm assuming that we're referencing the funeral scene where they're in the funeral home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fucking love that episode. It's the episode that if I ever tell someone to watch this show, it's the episode I say, tell me when you get to episode 6. Because I want to talk to you when you're done episode 6. Because that for me was the turning point that made it turn this series and the way it was filmed and the way it was done, turned it from me this is pretty fucking dope to this has now changed my life. That whole sequence of the one take of the camera just rotating in the middle while they're all having their own conscious of crisis, just this constant feeling of you are equally as panicked as everybody in that room because of the way it was filmed. And it's almost like you were literally there with them. It's almost like, when you're sitting at a table of 10 or 15 people and there's 7 conversations going on at once and you're trying to half focus on each one, but you're kind of getting overwhelmed with it.
Yeah.
It felt like that while I was watching it, which made me feel so immersed in all of their emotions. And I don't think I will ever see a scene filmed like that made me feel that way again. I think that was a pinnacle in cinematography for me, I would say.
Agreed. I think in the moment I felt all the same things, Megan. It was it just kept building and you started breathing heavier watching it. It's you want to see everything and it just keeps going. And I did not realize though at the time that it was because it was a 17-minute long take. It didn't clue into me that that's what had happened that made that scene, well, basically half the episode, very vivid. So I appreciate knowing that. I didn't find out until after, and then I was like, oh, that's why it was so traumatizing.
Yes. It just felt so real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It truly was you were in the room and you were just what's happening over there? What's happening over here? Holy shit.
Yeah.
I fucking love long takes. I'm always aware of them when they happen because I've got my brain works in that way. I'm always watching the cinematography and it's whether I'm trying to think. The first time that I was ever aware of a super long take was in the absolute shitty Nick Cage movie, Snake Eyes, where they just have this really long take that moves through an arena while like a boxing match is gearing up and stuff, and like it just goes through just so many different side characters and working its way through. But I mean, did you guys see 1917 or Birdman?
Birdman, yeah, I've seen.
God, that was just, I think it was done in a handful of takes,
Yeah.
right? Like a handful of shots. Like it was so good to see that. And it does amp up the intensity. This is why I think modern day horror movies are not as impressive as the older stuff, because it's a whole lot different when you watch like a Netflix original version of like some possession movie versus The Exorcist. The Exorcist doesn't pull away. You do not get a break. The scenes take 8 fucking minutes and you are stuck in that room, right? The entire
you're
time.
so right. Huh.
Yeah.
So that's why I think Alien is more successful than Aliens and is a better movie. It just has longer, better takes. It like it draws it out and it gives us room to breathe in the moments. So this is when that happened, I went, okay, this is someone who not just like loves horror, because we got a bunch of that shit, but this is someone who loves movies as well and who takes their craft, right?
Like you can feel the passion.
Yeah.
When you in all of these, like even the ones that I didn't quite like, or when you have an episode that's a wet fart, even the wet fart episodes are better things that I've watched than anything else on the planet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyways, I can't go on enough about how much I love that episode. So if anybody's listening to this and has not watched this series, just watch it to episode 6 and then tell me that you don't fucking love it.
It's the same reason people are still talking about the Daredevil fight scenes, right? There's one in each season, right? Which is like the long hallway or up and down the stairs or whatever, right? Because it's these long ass takes.
Yeah, you're not wrong. All right, moving on. If you had to adapt the story of Hill House into a D&D campaign, which parts would you change the most? Here's the thing. I wouldn't really want to change anything because I think there's a lot of good pieces here in terms of like playing a good horror campaign. Like this whole fucking series, this whole this show was basically them failing perception checks constantly. You know what I mean? Like it's like, and like the whole thing with it too was like this is the one that has all the hidden ghosts in the background. So and like the first time I watched it, I only ever saw one, and the first one I saw was way too late in the series where I was just like, oh my god, are there more? And then I learned that there were more, and I'm like, shit, now I have to watch it again, right? Anyways, that whole aspect of that, putting that into a D&D campaign in terms of like your character, like I don't know what I would want to figure out as a way to make that that suspense happen for the player, even though the character failed the perception check, but a way to like represent that to the rest of the group of the fact that there is something standing there, or you just feel it, or you use like some of the tips and tricks we do for the undead of like the air is cold, or like all those classic horror things to do. Also, like if you think about it, there's good dungeon crawls when they're going through the different parts of the house. There's locked doors that no one knows how to open. Like this is a D&D campaign. I wouldn't really change much of it. It's just about figuring out what rules you want to use, right? But anyways, I digress.
Yeah, I wouldn't change that much either. I think if you got the layout of the house down for a map, and the grounds as well, and which one? Okay, does Hill House, is that the one that has the well, or no? That's
Bly Manor.
Yeah, that's Bly Manor. Yeah,
because like you can highlight these different pieces. You could potentially change just what the item is to relate to. If you want to go down a specific type of undead, maybe you would adapt like a backstory piece to that. Like you could add in, let's say, the well to whatever to connect to someone's backstory, where their childhood home, their sister died in a well or some shit, you know. But Hill House, I don't know, I wouldn't say there's much to change. It's just it's a really, really cool haunted house to survive and get like escape, essentially.
Okay, so I would actually change a bunch of stuff.
Of course you fucking would.
but bear with me, because I'm trying to figure out how to make this a plot that D&D players can play, because the big problem here is that the story takes place in 2 timelines, right?
Yeah.
A significant portion of it is when they're kids. You are also all over the country as was it Luke? Is it Luke, the brother that's on drugs, is over in like California, and it's Luke, and like I would have, all right, so you start off in a small town, your adventurers are in a tavern. The Undertaker and his family, who are all estranged from each other and don't like to work together. Maybe there's two competing like Undertaker funeral homes in this small town, which seems a little weird, but they're all fucking weird because they grew up on that house up on the hill that nobody wants to like go explore, right? It's haunted, it's been shut down, we don't go there. But one of the daughters has gone missing, and that's where I would start off because Nell goes missing in like, is it episode 1 or 2? I can't remember. And then I'd have the adventurers go up there with everybody else be NPCs, right? With the father and the other kids. And then there would be seances. There would be exploring rooms as you slowly unlock it, finding old journals of the dead mother, right? Like there'd be all of this shit to slowly show what happened. There'd be flashback scenes. You walk into a room and see like an emotional echo of two kids having a fight with the mom, something, right? So you read about something in a journal, and then when somebody fails a charisma save later on, they end up recreating that moment, right? And so that's how I would unveil this. And at the end, you open up the red door and you finally get access to that room, only to find the twist is the entire family has been dead the whole time, but they cannot come to terms with it. So that's how I would do it. Instead of just the father dying, because if the players don't latch onto the father, then that's going to be, a wasted opportunity. So I just have everybody, or maybe everybody except their favorite one is dead in that room, and then you've got to like cleanse the area with the local cleric or whatever to put them to rest.
Okay, fine, Adam.
I mean, doing time stuff is hard in a campaign.
That's
right?
that's my big problem with it. I've tried. Fuck, it's hard.
Yeah. But like you gave me a good idea, and it goes well into the next question too. So the next question is, which of the characters from Hill House were your favorite, and which would you feel comfortable turning into NPCs for your home game with minor changes like the name or whatever? I really like the idea now to, like, again, when we're talking about time skips and time jumps, having that NPC or that character that did die at the beginning, but you get flashbacks of their life to learn a little bit more of the backstory of the world that you're playing in, right?
Yeah.
So I'm basically speaking about Nell, right? I loved her character, and I love the fact that like we lost her but didn't at the same time, and it was actually her story that told all of the story, even though she was technically dead. Right? So I would love to figure out how to make that an NPC in my campaigns in terms of they're dead and gone, but their backstory is still being told and being put to rest, right?
Yeah. Sorry, Casey, it's your turn.
Agreed. So this might be a weird spin on this question is what, like, I enjoyed all of the siblings, and I think they could all be easily be NPCs, but I was most enthralled by some of the recurring threatening ghosts, and I would make them NPCs in the sense that maybe they do actually give more information if the players interact and have successful roles. Like I vividly remember the ghosts, and I could see them being NPCs.
That's a really cool idea, is having the ghosts be shadows, specters, ghosts, whatever creatures in the house. And then when you defeat them, you get to ask them one question before they're disapparated forever, right? So so you could interview them. So then that's one of the bowler hat guy, right?
That's the guy. I will never forget that guy.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of like, what was her name? Dottie? Was it Dottie? That was the flapper?
Was it Dottie? I'm trying to see.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
But no, I honestly, when it comes to NPCs, first of all, Theodora is like sensitive to psychic reverberations. Yes, great. If she touches someone, she sees things. Awesome NPC, fantastic. Luke is an unreliable narrator because is he on drugs? So if you change that to be some sort of addicted to arcane knowledge, that like there's a warlock patron that's evil, that's siphoning his soul, so on and so forth. You've got the two older sisters who come hard baked with the conflict. You've got the older brother and the father who come hard baked with the conflict. They're all ripe for plucking into a campaign. Except I don't like Nell. Nell is the only one I didn't like in this, and it's because I've read The Haunting of Hell House, the original book this is based on. I've seen the first The Haunting movie, the black and white one. I think Vincent Price was in it. One of my favorite skeleton scares in all of cinema is in that movie.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the first movies that I ever saw in theaters was The Haunting with Liam Neeson and Catherine Zeta-Jones. First time I was ever aware that Owen Wilson was a person was in that movie. Like, there was just a lot of crazy stuff in that. But Nell always lives. The fact that they killed her off so early in this and then made her kind of a fringe character for everybody else was really strange. I'm not saying I didn't like it. It just threw everything on its ass. And I went, okay, everybody else is now more important than she is, right? I was missing the paranormal investigator out of this. And I guess the oldest son, Stephen, I think, was kind of doing that because he was writing books about ghosts, but it wasn't quite the same, right?
Yeah, because here's the thing. I loved that they made her a fridge character at the beginning.
Yes.
Like, it's normally you get fridge characters at the 50% mark and then or at the 75% mark to like cap off a series or a season, right? So I think that because she was their fridge character day one, made it feel a little bit different for me. And like it took that being the twist out, which made me think there was more coming.
Yes.
Right. So it fed into my need to want to keep watching it. And I think that's why I would love to make Nell into a character where the fridge character does die at the beginning, but doesn't go away.
Yeah, such a great quest giver without literally giving the quest, right? Like, she is the plot hook.
Yeah, like her journal is the plot hook. And then you're getting like, and then when someone reads it one night, you get a story from their past or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It's just, I think it'd be so cool to put that in a game.
You know, if you're going to do a game that's like slowly like learning the journal and whatnot, I would have some sort of intelligence check, maybe a history check, or a investigation check, probably investigation now that I say that, to actually flip through it. And if you roll high enough, like if you roll low enough, you're just getting like general diary info. But if you roll high enough, you hone in on one page, and then I will hand across some tea-stained, handwritten in cursive diary page that I would hand out. And it wouldn't be long because I mean, I've got other things to do in my life, but there would definitely be 2, 3, 4 paragraphs of just like day in the life with a couple of pieces of useful information, and then slowly hand that out to people as they keep flipping through this until by the end of it there's probably been 20 sheets handed out over a 4-month campaign, right?
You get a whole fucking journal by the end of it, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's roll initiative for the next set. 8.
Oh my God.
I got another 10.
Look at you.
I got 12. again.
Casey.
It was different dice.
Oh, there you go. Well, you're reading questions, milady.
Great. Love that. All right. We're going into Bly Manor. Which characters from Bly Manor were your favorite, and which would you feel comfortable turning into NPCs for your home game? And why was it Owen? Why was it Owen? It is Owen.
I want to be his best friend.
Right? Like, protect him at all costs ish.
If he die, he die. I'm trying to remember a lot of the characters, to be honest with you, because like I feel like this cast was a lot smaller than
it is and it isn't. Let me give you the breakdown really quickly because
throw down. Yeah.
This is the one that I've watched the most recently. Like, I did a rewatch on it.
Yeah.
Our main character is Danny, and she's the one that's kind of haunted by the idea of like her ex-fiance who she declared she couldn't marry him, and then he got hit by a car and died, and like he's haunting her, right? And so she's the main character. She goes to England, and she wants to be a nanny for the same guy. I don't remember his name. He played the father in Hill House, and he's actually like the same actor that played Elliot from E.T., like the kid from E.T., all grown up, which I didn't know until like I was watching Fall the House of Usher. But so he never goes to the house because his wife died there. He's got 2 kids. They're both creepy as fuck. And the boy is consistently possessed by a ghost, but we don't know that until much later. And the girl just knows where spirits are. And then there's this whole, like, the 2 other staff members there are Hannah, who is the governess, and then Owen, who's the cook. And then there's someone else. Oh, there's the woman that Danny falls in love with, who's the gardener and the groundskeeper.
Jamie. Yeah.
Jamie, yes. And then but then there was also a previous house sitter as well. And that's who Danny's replacing. And she fell in love with the estranged father's assistant, and they were probably stealing from them for a bit, but weren't they in love? And then they end up dying by this whole big crazy ass flashback character where we had a bunch of like women from the 1600, somewhere around there, which were like died from the plague and shit, and were like, it was all about their fading memories as they fade away, and that's why they don't have faces. And like, anyway, so there are a bunch of characters here, but
Yeah.
I feel like none of them are as impactful as all of them are in Hill House.
Yeah, I like my memory of them is like as individual characters is very slim.
Yeah.
But
yes. And one thing that to clarify, Adam, is that the parents of the two kids are actually dead. It's the uncle that won't go to the house.
Right. Yes.
And
Yes. That's right.
So that is also a slow burn reveal of why he won't go to the house. And of course, it's a bunch of fuckery that happened way back when the kids were younger, you know.
Because he was having an affair with the mother, right?
Yeah. So, you know, if you fuck your brother's wife, things are gonna go wrong.
But they fuck around and find out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I also, this was the one I watched most recently, and I thoroughly loved Owen and Hannah's character development. And Hannah frustrated me a bit because, like, yes, she was always, you know, kind of daydreaming and getting lost, like, in thought. And it's just like, okay. Like all the time, it's like, I know that means something, let's just get to the point of what's happening to her when she's in these states. So but she plays a huge role in the story, so those are my two top.
She is literally my favorite character in this one by a damn sight, because I guessed what her twist was. Like, I knew from episode 1 that, oh, this one's a ghost, because this felt, again, I believe this is based on a written property, but I'm not certain about that. But it reminded me of the others in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But in that movie, it's the groundskeepers that are dead the whole time. And I knew that there would be a twist like that somewhere in this. It just gave me the vibe, and I was looking for it. So I pegged that really early with Hannah. And then that kept me guessing on who else is dead. Right. And they actually had a couple of house, like just general maintenance people as well that were around that would never be there after dark. And I'm like, so it's definitely not them. Otherwise, they would only be there after dark. So
yeah.
Right. So I thought it was really, really well played out with Hannah, and she breaks my heart. Her story was so sad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think they just did a really good job of this one of creepy children. So I was just gonna put creepy children in my next horror campaigns. So there you go. Creepy haunted children.
Yeah, her like absolutely splendid,
right?
All the time.
Oh my god. This, yeah.
What is it about British children that makes them creepy?
I don't know. Maybe it's just because like it having an accent like that makes you think that they're distinguished, but they're still children. So you have that weird crisis of conscience of like, am I talking to a child or am I talking to an adult?
And they're kind of like, and it's as far as North America goes, whenever you have a creepy child, it makes you like automatically assume that they're dead if they've got a British accent, because it like harkens back to the olden days, you know, for people that live in North America. So I feel like that just makes them even creepier. The moment you put a creepy British child in some sort of like Victorian clothing, that's peak creepy kid. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially it's suspenders. It's the suspenders. Kids in suspenders for me. I don't know why. It's just like you're a creepy kid.
The next time you see one, Megan, just kick them.
Fuck this kid wearing suspenders.
Buy a belt, bitch.
Yeah, buy a belt like a regular person. Anyways.
All right, moving on.
Yep.
Next question. Did you find recurring actors to be jarring or distracting? I personally remember getting whiplash after seeing Oliver Jackson Owen, actor of Luke in Hill House, as Peter Quint in Bly. Yes, I'm glad that this question was asked because I was gonna touch on this even when we first were talking about Hill House as well. I think it might be why I feel like Bly Manor was less impactful than Hill House, because I was doing that, like I was maybe not as enthralled in the characters because I was still relating them to the character in Hill House. So I was a bit thrown, and it took a number of episodes to get in to be like, oh right, okay, this is not this is not Luke, this is Peter Quint. And like they're very different characters in each show, which like the actors did a phenomenal job of that, but it threw me.
I had no problem with this. I watched them all so far apart. Actually, I watched Bly Manor first. I for some reason slept on Hill House for like a year and a half, and so I had no problem with this whatsoever. Even I don't have a problem with it when they do any sort of even when you have like those celebrity groups that keep going, like you damn well know that Jonah Hill is going to show up in a Seth Rogen movie, right? Like you just see the same Adam Sandler's group of lovable idiots always show up in the same movies, and like it doesn't pull me out of it. I can suspend my disbelief pretty easily, unless they're a terrible fucking actor. Like Rob Schneider is Rob Schneider, right? There was no character there in the first place for me to be confused about. So just what borderline offensive accent is he going to do today?
Why Atlanta? Yeah, I wasn't jarred by it. I can actually get Casey to your point in saying that it might have been why Bly Manor wasn't as impactful for me. I might be in that same boat. Because I loved the characters in Hill House, and then going into Bly and then trying to find something about these characters that I would love, it was harder. But the fact that we use repeat actors doesn't bother me. In fact, I almost prefer that. And I think that that's a really fun thing that a lot of directors do these days, and producers, is they technically always pick the same actors because they know what they're capable of and how they work. It's like any other business, right? And I don't know, I like being able to see them play completely different characters and seeing that change of their acting style and how good they are, right? Like the only one that like that I felt jarring was Nell and what's her name in Bly? Danny. They were very similar characters.
They were, yeah.
So I think that was jarring for me because it felt like she was playing the same character. And so I had a hard time connecting with Danny the way I connected with Nell, because I liked Nell and I didn't really like Danny. So that was the only jarring character swap for me. But everything else, like I think it's a wonderful thing that they do when they do things like this. Like what was it? The American Horror Story did it too. I think they were first.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind that either. That was awesome. So
yeah, it's Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan. They all like working with their favorite people over and over again, right? So
yeah.
I get a confession to make. I think that the actress that played Nell and Danny is the weakest of them all. And when I found out she wasn't in any of the future ones, I was very happy.
Yeah.
I think the rest of them are such powerhouses.
That's true. Yeah. Great cast.
Yeah. And I agree. I think I have absolutely jumped on that bandwagon because I think we're going to talk about other shows that we would recommend as well, or other directors and you know what I mean. Anyway, we'll move on. All right. How do you think the ghosts in Bly and Hill House compare? Do you think that one interpretation is better than the other, and why? Well,
you want to hold your action there, Casey?
I will forever be so terrified of the Hill House ghosts.
Yes, always.
Like they and like you said, Megan, too, when you watch it again, you see more. Like every time you watch it, you see more and more. And I think that's what brings the horror and the terror. And Bly, I felt, was still, it had more of the jump scare and like still very scary ghosts, but they landed a bit different. Like they didn't make my stomach turn in like terror like Hill House ones did. But I think they were both good. It was just they did hit different, and that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
Well, I think that they had different purposes, right? The ghosts in Hill House were there to scare you. That was not their narrative purpose, but the reason that they were involved there by like the filmmakers. For Bly Manor, their purpose was to tell a story. to be tragic. And I think one of the reasons why it didn't hit the same way, like as a series overall, I just want to remind everybody, this was the one where people were still social distancing. We just come out of lockdown for months on end. Some people were still in lockdown around the world. And this was a slow, dream-like, tragic series of romances that almost were successful. We wanted to root for it, but they never worked. And it was meant to be a look at legacy and memory and like the impact that we have on the world with all of this, like the ghosts being faceless as they're forgotten over time. Their features start to slowly disappear as if fading from a memory or a washed out photograph.
Yeah.
That's such a different kind of dread than the dark thing in the corner is going to jump at me, right? And while there were jump scares in it, it was existential in Bly Manor. And I don't think that hits with everybody the same way that a true by the numbers horror movie would work. And Haunting of Hill House, while it was unique in its format, it did have a lot of the horror movie tropes attached to it. So their ghosts were ghosts. The end. That's it. But the ghosts in Bly Manor served a larger narrative purpose. We got to know all of them. Every one of them had a backstory. They weren't just an unknown, creepy factor that we couldn't see, we didn't understand. The fear of the unknown was lifted for every single one of them. And by the end of it, we know that Danny, like there's this long protracted like epilogue where she and Jamie move in together. They live their lives, but you know, Danny's always haunted by the woman, the faceless woman. And when she realizes that it's coming for her and it's in her soul, she just one day has to, you know, kill herself. And it goes on and on and on. This epilogue, that's not scary. At no point was it scary. We just were sitting in the car, slowly watching that train getting closer and closer. It's that level of dread that we couldn't handle, instead of it being scary monster, right? And that's why I'm talking myself into loving Bly Manor more and more now that I'm saying it out loud, because that's the emotional kick in the junk that I'm a big fan of in my horror movies.
Yeah. And I mean, so for me, I liked the Hill House ones better because that's my kind of haunting and my kind of ghost, right? Like even talking about Hill House, I am currently sitting in my room, like with all the doors closed because of sound. And there's a part of me that's like internally panicking, waiting that I'm going to see something standing in the corner. You know what I mean? And like I'm still to this day, when I think about the Hill House, I still get scared of the things that I saw in the background. You know what I mean? And I liked the fact that we didn't get every backstory for every spirit and every ghost that was haunting. We just got a little bit of glimpse of potentially what could be a story, which I just think is great storytelling in terms of like a D&D campaign aspect of there's all of these spirits in this house that have a backstory. You don't know what they are, but if you want to explore it, you can, right? But then because it wasn't the main storyline, a lot of these ghost stories just disappeared with the show. But it doesn't mean that later down the line, we can't get a season 2 or a conversation or like another story about one of the other ghosts in this house, right? And I think that's my kind of horror that I love, is the fact that I don't get all of my questions answered. Because to your point, Adam, when you have that fear of the unknown is what keeps me in horror. As soon as I see the monster, I stop being scared of it, right? Like it's any monster movie, all that kind of stuff. As soon as I see it and I know what it looks like, I no longer give a shit. And so that's what I liked about the Hill House ones, is that there's always a different one, and they were always doing something weird and different, right? Whereas like Bly Manor, like you knew who your ghosts were. So I wasn't overly afraid of them. So to the point though, it's different storytelling. But I prefer the Hill House ones over, I now know this ghost exists and I'll just live happily with it. You know what I mean?
I tried explaining it to Mieka, who got, I am not joking, 45 seconds into The Haunting of Hill House, where she stood up, declared loudly, "Ew, no," and walked away. And I had to press to find out why. And it was because every frame or every shot was framed with large, empty, open spaces of open doors or long hallways or staircases in the background. And she saw it, like everyone, she was like watching the background because she knew that there were ghosts in the background, but she didn't know when they were showing up, and she couldn't necessarily see down the hallway, just like faded into black. She's like, I can't handle it. My anxiety is through the fucking roof already. The answer is no. So, but I tried to explain to her, The Haunting of Hill House is a horror show with some strong drama. The Haunting of Bly Manor is a drama with some strong horror elements. And that's the difference between them.
Yeah, and like I was mentioning about some of the ghosts potentially being NPCs, just with some like information that you could get. Like Bly Manor is very clearly some NPCs you could like get a huge story from, get a lot of information. They do have that backstory reveal, so even easier to make Bly Manor ghosts NPCs. All right, if you had to adapt the story of Bly Manor into a D&D campaign, how would you? Well, I think I just was going down that road. I think the characters are actually much easier to make into NPCs, and including the ghosts. The ghosts could actually have even stat blocks and potentially hurt you, or you could end up allying with them, because they didn't necessarily hurt the kids or really anybody that was good or didn't do horrible or bad things. They had their own, I guess, vendetta or their own mission in why they were doing what they were doing, which I think is something cool to use in D&D campaign. But I'm going to defer this one because Adam, I know you probably have many thoughts beyond that on Bly Manor.
If I can be honest, I wouldn't. There are 3 factors here that make it so that I think that it's in the perfect medium already. And it's the fact that it's a series of love stories, it's a series of tragedies, and it's a long look at existential dread. None of those particularly fit easily into a D&D campaign.
Unless you want all players just to be sad and depressed when we're trying to get out of being sad and depressed by playing D&D.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
And
I mean,
sorry, Megan, go ahead.
no worries. I was just gonna say, well, I mean, I play sadness simulators on a regular basis. Like, I'm here for the tragedy, so it just fits right into my bill of what I would want out of a campaign. But that's just me.
But it's different when you are uncovering the past tragedies of NPCs as opposed to you witnessing it yourself. And that's what this story is, right? And so that's why I feel like with the multiple levels, the romances that we have so they're the kids, their parents have a failed romance. The uncle and the mom have a failed romance. The big kick in the ass at the end of it is Danny and Jamie have a failed romance. Hannah and Owen have a failed romance. Peter and I can't remember, begin with an R. I want to say, I don't remember, whoever the first Rebecca, thank you. They had a failed romance. That's all this is, over and over and over again. And while we are hitting these different themes, and we do get this payoff at the end that the little girl, all grown up, is going off to be happily married, and that's the only successful romance, that's really hard to just set up for one big storyline in a D&D campaign. So, like,
fair.
I'd probably do one of them, but that's it. I would rather use the faceless ghost and her storyline as a plot than any of the actual main characters.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, in this section, we're going to go slightly more general. What is your opinion on Flanagan's style of monologues in his shows? So this I noticed the most in Fall of the House of Usher. I could be wrong if I actually went back and rewatched all of these. Maybe there's many more, but I enjoy it. I feel like there might have been times in Fall of the House of Usher where I glazed over a little in the long monologue from some of the parents. So I think it's good. It can draw you in and, give you existential crisis usually on their whole story that they're trying to share. But I like that he does this kind of style in all of his series. Fall of the House of Usher maybe was just a smidge too much for me, but yeah, I'm cool with it. I think it's an interesting way to share a lot of info and a lot of history, make you think a certain way.
I'm all for it because, first of all, they're never exposition dumps, which is really good. It's all about subtext and what the character remembers and what their perspective is, how they're going to move forward, what their plans are, right? How they feel about things. but it's not about pushing the plot, right? These are pure character moments. A good monologue is different than dialogue because dialogue wastes space. There's a lot of bullshit dialogue that exists, and that's just the nature of it, where you have people just asking why or saying, look out, right? These are not important words. In a monologue, every word is carefully chosen by the writer and the director, and then the actor has to put all of their effort into every single point that is made. They have to understand the through plot, where they're coming from and where they're going, between the beginning and the end of the monologue. What is the point or points they're trying to make, and why do they make it in these ways, instead of just existing and being a prompt for other things, or pushing oh hey, it says here that the bad guy has escaped to the warehouse. Garbage dialogue, right? We could show that with a map or a letter, but you can't do that in a monologue. So as someone who's got this big acting backstory for myself, like I've been trained. I love monologues. It's why we use monologues to determine how good an actor is during the audition process. It's why people like Shakespeare so much, is because he will do these massive fucking monologues. I love a good monologue. You guys see The Lighthouse?
Yeah.
Right?
It's
With
one big monologue.
Fuck me, that was beautiful. I love a monologue. So I'm all for it. Can they be long and windy or winding? Yes, absolutely. Especially Edgar Allan Poe. You're right, Casey. It gets to be a bit much with that guy and Lovecraft were just navel gazers the entire fucking time. They were so obsessed with their own fucking words, right? That it could become so off-putting to take it in large chunks. And whatever 8-10 episodes Follow the House of Usher was, yeah, there were points in it that it was a lot. But if you could watch it one episode per week, it would have been great.
Yeah, I think that's it too. Yeah. When you binge something, that's when you see the patterns and you see something that's like, yeah, that's quite a bit. But if you don't binge something, you don't notice that as much.
You don't really see that repetition. Yeah.
It's why Breaking Bad is not as popular. It's still very popular with people, but it's not as popular with new viewers now because you can binge it instead of sitting in these moments and then having to mull it over for a week or 4 months or however long between episodes. When you could just back to back to back, it just feels like a whole lot of nothing instead of you like seeping into the moment. So fuck, I love a good monologue.
Yeah, and I feel like in these ones, they did a very good job that when like an actual monologue occurs, there's a reason for it. It's not like it feels very specifically placed so that you don't feel like you're just being monologued at. Like it's like a smooth transition where you don't feel jarred or like that you're just getting an info dump. Like you are watching this person go through a crisis. You know what I mean? So
if you want to see a good movie of almost entirely fucking monologues, you should watch Glengarry Glen Ross. It is such a mundane nothing plot, and the characters are essentially two-dimensional, but holy fuck, the characterization and the writing is so good in that. I can't say enough good shit about but I mean, that's another one that was based on a different medium first, right? We get a lot of monologues in novels and in plays, right? Less so in TV and movies because we've got shorter periods of time, right? And it's not expected that we're going to have to sit here with the characters like that. So when it does happen, it does feel strange.
Cool.
Sorry, I
you just monologue there a little
bit. Surprise, surprise, I like monologues. Are we going to roll initiative again?
Let's do it. Now is the time.
I got a 15.
9.
Oh, I'm in true Casey form. 3.
Well done.
All right, starting off, I guess I'm going first. Hey, we're all taking turns. That's nice.
It's actually working out that way this time. I remember last time we did one of these, I think one of us had to do like 3 sections in a row.
Yeah. Which characters from Midnight Mass were your favorite, and which would you feel comfortable turning into NPCs for your home game with minor changes, like, for example, their name and stuff? And again, and why is it Bev?
We love Bev.
Yeah, the sheriff is so freaking good in that. I don't know what it is. Like, this actor, he fucking knocks it out of the park every time.
Yeah.
But he's great. I'm trying to remember because I don't remember the names. Bev is she the evil fucking horror bitch that I love to hate?
Yes.
Yes.
She reminded me so much of the woman in The Mist that I just want to punch in the throat.
You're not wrong. Yeah, that's a good connection.
And her monologues, I couldn't stand. I'm like, shut up.
I know.
Right?
Like they make you uncomfortable.
But she was so good doing it. Like that's what you
Yeah.
were supposed to feel. Also the father, like he's so fucking unnecessarily good. Like I don't know. I don't even know how to talk about it. He's so fucking rad. I would totally use him as a conflicted villain. That's such a great character.
Oh yeah.
Mhm. I thought, okay, so what's the actor's name that played the actual like the priest or the father? I don't remember what his name is, but in the show it's Father Paul. Paul?
Yeah.
It's his last name is Linklater.
Hamish. Hamish.
There we go.
Yeah.
We got there together.
Yeah. Phenomenal work. And I loved his character. His character is what kind of made this one for me.
Yeah.
Because like it's one of those things where you kind of know what the twist is. It's pretty self-explanatory. Like, you're not going to get any huge surprises. But it was his acting and watching him be deceitful and watching him like be this like 7 different sided person was such an interesting ride. And I would love to have like that. It's like your perfect big bad evil guy. Like in the way they communicate, you know what I mean? And I want him as a big bad evil guy in my campaign because he's so believable. Like you sit there and listen to his monologues and you believe the shit that's coming out of his mouth, even though you know that he's lying. Like it's so.
I wish that he was in more things.
Yeah.
When you talk about charisma
and
in D&D, and everyone thinks that charisma just means the riz, I can hit on people. No, it's force of personality. That actor fucking oozes charisma all the way through this, and it's a very subtle charisma, but he just draws everyone in the story and the audience into every word he says.
Yeah, like he creates the epic monster that Bev becomes. It's because Bev is all in and cannot, and even like spoilers, but even at the very end when Father Paul is like, maybe I made a mistake. It's like, oh, wait, this isn't what. Maybe I was really selfish and just wanted this to happen for my own reasons. Like Bev is like, well, fuck you. This is happening anyway. I'm just going to take your place and be this epic evil character. So I feel like the two of them as Bev, as like the I don't know, the can't think of words. Like if Father Paul was, your big bad evil guy in your campaign, Bev is like their right hand person,
Yeah.
And it would be an epic twist in a campaign that you see the big bad evil guy start to falter, but then the right hand person comes in to actually become the big bad evil guy in the end. Both good.
I feel like I cut you off earlier, Megan. I'm sorry. Did you have more to say?
No, you're good. We're also very excited. But yes, no, I think like the Hamish as an actor, just chef's kiss as a whole. So
why is he not running fucking A24, right? Like he should be in every fucking movie.
Right.
What are your thoughts on the religious commentary in Midnight Mass? Yeah, I'm for it. I love religious horror, but they always get the religion wrong, right? That's the part of the horror is they twist it and they pervert it and they see it from the wrong perspective, and that's what makes it so scary. That's why religion itself or religious organizations in reality can be so fucking scary too, is because it's getting twisted. It's not the original intent of it. I legitimately believe that we as a human race have moved away from the concept of religion overall. There's a higher percentage of atheists and agnostics now than ever before in the past, and it's simply because the organizations keep letting people down, right? And so watching this organization just descend into absolute pure evil in the name of good with all of the right promises but the wrong methods, I love that. I think that's just ripe for storytelling.
And like I've had this argument with somebody before who hated the Conjuring movies because they didn't like the religious undertones, and like it not even undertones, it was overtone in religion. But I feel like religion kind of has to be baked into horror to a degree, and to your point, it doesn't have to be one religion or another, but it's the belief that there is something more or something less in this world, that unknown, is where horror exists. And so religion does tend to be a very easy grab in terms of there's a lot here that you can work with, the same way that we glomp onto other things when it comes to D&D. We write what we know on a regular basis, right? And I really enjoyed this one with its religious commentary in terms of like, it was almost a satire in terms of like how horribly wrong it could go, you know? And it was interesting to watch because again, it's that believability that when Father Paul was giving a speech or giving a sermon or something like that, I sat there believing the shit coming out of his mouth. You know what I mean? Like it was just so well done in a way that it was overly done, but then didn't make me feel like I was being preached at. I was just along for the ride. And I think that is a very hard line to follow. I've watched a lot of weird religious horror recently because that seems to be the shtick going on right now, like with The Nun and all those other ones. And there's some that just don't do it right and don't do it well. But
Like
this
The
one did it
Nun?
well. Like The Nun did it awfully. Did anybody see The Nun too?
No, Megan, I had standards. Come on.
Don't. Absolutely do not. Like I actually paid money to go see it and I regret every penny I spent on it. So please do not see it. But that is a representation of like religious horror done terribly. This one was done really well and I enjoyed it.
And I think again, it was the dynamic of Bev and Father Paul, but Bev was so all in on where Father Paul was directing them that even when there was big gaps and she was determined to find the spin in religious text that aligned with her purpose.
Yeah.
And there was nothing that could sway her from it. Like it was, that I think is what made it kind of terrifying. That's
the true horror. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Like that is what it's like. This is what I think brings it home and more real in that it's like all like religions are like this in real life. It will spin and twist to their belief and convince people that that is what the interpretation is. And it just to serve whatever purpose they need. And so that was so wild. And like I don't know if you remember, I watched this one not too long ago either. Like the island has a public school, but then they're like preaching the Bible in the school. And then that's when the sheriff is a bit upset because he's like, okay, like we have a different religion. And in that argument, or it was in the meeting in the school, basically Bev gaslights the shit out of everybody.
Right.
And it's just horrible to watch. And I forget her name, the teacher who like Bev absolutely hates. And like she hates Bev, who is, I guess, maybe Erin, that's her name in the movie. Like she is like, I can see through all of your crap, but yet she could not do anything about it. And that I remember that scene too, because it was just again a massive monologue for Bev to everybody, speaking at everybody.
Yeah.
But it was that was the horror, is like, Jesus. This is so scary how much people can believe.
Yeah. And that town meeting, like anxiety, like the anxiety I felt watching that town hall meeting is the same anxiety I got in episode 6 of Hill House, right? Like you're just sitting there with them, like you're in it. You know what I mean? Like you just so are immersed because these characters are so well written and so believable. And these monologues are so powerful that you're sitting there. I believe this shit coming out of their mouths. You know what I mean? Like it just blows my mind that anyways, I digress once again.
I got to say, for me, the most horrifying moment, the thing that like I was on the edge of my seat anytime that they addressed it, was as a direct result of Bev's crazy shit and of the father. And it was when the sheriff's son is like, hey, I want to go to church and I'm going to believe in the Christian God now. And just the struggle of that as a parent, especially when it starts to reveal how fucking wrong it is. And then like the tragedy of that story's ending. Fuck.
Oh yeah.
When they started to do that, I'm like, okay, this show has the balls that I need other shows to have now. So do you think Midnight Mass would work better as a D&D campaign if the players started as oblivious townsfolk or as vampires, replacing Father Paul and Pruitt with the party? oblivious townfolk. Like
Yeah, there's no question here. I feel like that is, don't get me wrong, doing the flip is neat, but I don't think as it would just be like a whole game of deception. You have to have really good role players. You know what I mean? Whereas I feel like the oblivious townfolk would be a little bit more of a digestible table.
And good reveal opportunities.
Yeah.
This actually, okay, sorry, we're jumping in. Go ahead, Adam. You are first.
No, I'm almost done. My last point is that it's not a D&D campaign because a commoner with their 10s across the board and a CR0 rating versus a CR13 vampire. If your players are vampires, nothing the townsfolk can do can stop them. There's no slow roll in this campaign. They're just going to get bored as players and begin slaughtering, and now you just have murder hobos as they destroy a town. There's no campaign here, right? Okay, now I'm done.
Now you're done. Okay, great.
Monologue over.
Right? Here's the thing. I would almost want to do like a blend of both because and this would fall under, I think, like the realm of almost co-DMing, but not 100% co-DMing. Just like you are a player at the table, but you have a little bit more insider knowledge than the rest of the table does, and you are playing the father or the priest. And you're basically playing a different game at the table than everybody else is, right? And then the big reveal turns out that they have been the big bad evil guy this whole time, but it was actually a player at your table just working with the DM on how to like play out some of these scenes. But it would be like for a shorter campaign. It would be like a one-shot day or like a two-shot kind of game where like that can be managed better, because I find if you're doing a long-term campaign, having somebody that's the big bad evil guy can sometimes be a little bit hard to manage and control. It might end up being not fun for somebody after a while. So I think that if you're going to do a one-shot with this, I would do a blend of both.
I like that. That's a good spin, especially if you have some like long-term D&D players that like one of the players can handle that, and I think that would be really fun. Add a bit more challenge to them too. Well, this was triggering this question because I instantly thought of when we were oblivious townfolk walking into a city and we couldn't fucking figure out for like 8 months, Adam, what the hell was going on.
For those of you who don't know what Casey's talking about, on the Patreon for silver tiered members, I started off, I think I did I can't remember how many episodes, 4 to 6 episodes on just running a false Hydra and how I completely fucked over my entire party repeatedly. And it ended in just a swath of deaths and frustration. And Megan, you were poised for your character was poised for suicide at the end there.
Yeah.
It was chef's kiss.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm glad you think that was chef's kiss, Adam. On your side,
the goal of Dungeons and Dragons is to make it as memorable as possible for all of the right reasons. So I don't think you're going to forget the false Hydra for a long fucking time.
No, you are certainly right.
Yeah.
So yes, like as from that experience, again, hands down, it's from the oblivious townfolk side is the best way to reveal this epic story in Midnight Mass. If you did it in a D&D campaign, it's like every time, what is happening? I can't figure it out. Someone might figure it out. It might take you 6 months in real time to figure it out, but when you do, it's horrifying.
We're going to swap over to the Midnight Club now.
Mm-hmm.
Which characters from the Midnight Club were your favorite, and which would you feel comfortable turning into NPCs for your home game with minor changes? My only answer here is Anya.
Anya, yeah.
I like Sandra as well, and Amesh. I did not give a shit about Shasta and the cult stuff. I just wanted to spend time with these kids and watch them work through it. So I like them. Again, I'm not going to bring. Okay, so personally, I'm not going to bring any of this onto my D&D table. So I just wouldn't. The idea of a midnight society that reads or that explores horror things, really, really cool. We can use the Weathermay Foxglove sisters from Van Richten's for that, or like there are monster hunters out there, but is there an afterlife is already answered in D&D, and that's a major factor here. And these characters, no, I'm not. I just wouldn't use them.
Yeah, and like My thing is, this is kind of like, it reminds me of the kind of pain of watching like 13 Reasons or whatever those kinds of films are, where it's like, if you had a day zero conversation about the things that you do not want to talk about at the table, if you wanted to play this campaign, you would have like 700 red flags of like, don't touch this subject. You know what I mean? Because they touch on so many traumatic experiences for young adults, mixed in with, as well as talking about like the mortality of life. And it's a very heavy thing to watch and experience that I do not think that I would want to play in a campaign with any of these characters and like work through that and that kind of thing, right? It's just, it would take a lot of emotional capacity to be respectful and kind and all of these things at the table. You would be doing therapy at the table. And having any of these characters, especially any of the kids with their heavy backstories as characters or player characters, it would be a hard thing to do well. And I think that's why I loved all of the characters and their stories and those kinds of things, but I would not use them in a D&D campaign.
Well,
that's my mic drop moment for you.
I'm with you both on it. I didn't necessarily like connect heavily with any of them. Not when you compare it to the other series we've talked about already. I found it just I didn't quite get invested in them. And so I'm less inclined to build them out as like a I don't know. I'm less inclined to even pick a favorite or use them in an NPC because I think I would have to add way more to them to make them like a valued NPC. I don't know. It was lowest on my list too. This didn't grab me nearly as much as the other series.
Yeah.
If I can be honest, there's a lot of stuff in here that you can steal for a D&D campaign, whether it is, you know, the idea of waiting for a sign from the afterlife to like secret cults and secret societies and you know, the weird woman out in the woods who has the answers that you might seek, trying to get rid of, for like these kids are dealing with terminal diseases, but like lifting a curse, and like you can adapt it in many different ways. But I wouldn't. The same way that I can learn lessons from watching Sophie's Choice or Schindler's List. I can be inspired by some things for D&D, but I'm not telling that story. I'm not using those characters. It's just inappropriate for my tabletop role-playing game.
Yeah. And I wanted to touch on too, maybe this also maybe that duplication of actors in different roles. So Bev, who like I absolutely hated, yet she is the reason, you know, you can't forget about Midnight Mass.
Yeah.
In this one, she was also a similar type character, but for me, the character development fell much more flat. Like it was hard. I guess maybe it was hard to disconnect her from how great she was as Bev. And in this one, it was like, you're playing something similar, but I'm not believing you.
Not as convinced. Yeah.
That's maybe also where Adam was going on that character too. It's like, yeah, didn't believe her.
So the last question in this section is, do you think a campaign based on the Midnight Club would play better as a long-form campaign, mirroring the children as they discover more and more about the cult, or as an anthology-style campaign with the children telling these stories as a framing device, or a mix of both? And if we remove the idea of the terminal illness and like this, what was it called, Bright Cliff Manor or estate? I can't remember now. Where like they go there to die, right? If we can remove that and just have this framing device or a cult, yeah, both of those are great. I have no problem with that. The kids telling stories, right? Like Are You Afraid of the Dark? Beautiful. Let's do a series of one-shots leading up to Halloween, right? Sounds fucking great. It's even better if every single one of these kids telling a story is actually represented by a different person sitting around the table, and when it's their turn to tell the story, that person DMs the one shot. Monologue over.
I feel like you just have to say that at this point.
Yeah.
I think it's hard for me to answer this one just in terms of the fact that I've said I would not do this as a D&D campaign. Period. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a good cult. So if I was to do it, I would almost remove some of like the torturous backstories of the kids and just do a nice cult story. Because like, again, to your point earlier, Adam, there are pieces of all of these that you can build on and utilize and take some of those characters. But like, again, it's just those hard conversations that I don't use D&D for that. You know what I mean? So I would just let's do cults and do more religious trauma horror, but I would not add in the mortality and all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
It could be something like it's not a place where the children are going to die. It's an orphanage, or it's a refuge center, something that you take out that piece of the story and then you could spin it in a different way. Makes it a little easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're done for these 5 questions. It might be time to roll initiative again.
Yeah.
It is that time. Oh, talk about some nice ones.
Natural 1.
Look at you. I got a 12.
7.
Feeling very Casey right now with my 12.
Yeah.
I'm feeling very Casey right now with my natural 1.
Oh, Lord. Okay, first one. Heavy question. How many times did you cry while watching Midnight Club? And don't lie, because I'll know. I think I cried in every episode. I think I found something that was connectable enough and identifiable enough that it was traumatic to watch almost for me. And I think that that's, again, why I don't want to do a campaign based off of some of the storylines that were touched on in this one, because it was hard to watch. And I don't know, there were some moments where I actually walked away from this once or twice because I couldn't finish an episode, or I just didn't want to listen to the conversation that was being had. So I am not going to lie. I cried a lot in this one. I did. I was a little baby, a little bitch baby.
Well, I'll balance you out, Megan. I did not cry at all. I absolutely felt the awful backstory, this is terrible and it's impacting my soul because I don't want to know any more horrible things that have happened to these children. But it did not bring me to tears. So maybe that's my heart being slightly more cold. But
look at you, stone cold heart, Casey.
It takes more than a horrible story of a dying child to get me to cry, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. What about you, Adam?
Casey, you're gonna feel really shitty here in a sec. Let me tell you something that I don't talk about in the podcast. I have a personal story here about why I chose to disconnect from this. I had a real hard trouble with the first episode. And I am a completionist, so I like to go back and finish it, but I did bail around episode 7 or 8. I couldn't do it anymore. When I realized that they were taking this heavy subject matter and that was going to slowly descend into wacky cult shenanigans, I went, this is not the serious nature that I needed to go. When I was a teenager, when I was 15, I started dating a girl. She's a year older than me. And then when I was 16 and a half, we've been together for quite some time. Very, very involved in each other's lives. This was not just like a teenage fling kind of situation. She was diagnosed with cancer, and I spent 2.5 years either spending my time engrossed in the theater or sitting beside her bed. And we spent the majority of that time working through chemo and radiation, and we were told that this is likely going to be fatal. And so we thought that it was I spent 2.5 years watching her get skinnier and skinnier, and I have had the conversation of, you can take your wig off, you're still beautiful to me. I've said those words. I don't need that shit in my horror. And had I known that that was the premise, because I went into every one of these blind, which is how I prefer to consume my media.
Mm-hmm.
When I went into this and I realized this is what we were dealing with, I needed it to be respectful, and the actors did a great job. And the writing in the moment, the dialogue was fine. It was a little bit too real for me in a lot of ways. And when there was that reveal that, hey, one person might have gotten a false diagnosis, and they're actually going to recover, it felt so disingenuous to me that I couldn't do it anymore. Even though my now ex-girlfriend had made a complete recovery, as far as I know now, I mean, I haven't spoken to her in like 20 years, but as far as I know now, she's never had any sort of cancer come back or appear anywhere else. So great success. But I either witnessed or felt what all of these kids felt in deeper and more personal ways than I was comfortable dealing with while watching this Halloween show. So how often did I cry? Not fucking once. But you can bet that I can imagine, I don't have a mirror in my living room, but I imagine that I was sitting there, arms crossed, stone-faced, taking a hefty sigh between episodes before moving into the next one. So not to make it a big sob story for me, but this is one of the reasons why I say, you don't know what's in people's backgrounds. Session zeros are important. And if someone puts up a boundary, you respect it, right?
Yeah. And And I think that's the hard part about this series, especially like every episode was a different heavy subject matter.
Yeah.
And so I can't imagine that you were the only one who had that experience. And I luckily enough, I was able to identify with small bits and pieces, but have not been through something like that, Adam. So I do not doubt that I would have to have stopped it too. Like it's tough. It's hard.
Yeah. And I mean, again, it was personal for me as well, because I get it. These kids are trying to escape into the stories that are being told. When I was 16, 17, 18, I was escaping into the theater to tell fake stories with my friends in a safe space, right? So that I didn't have to deal with the shit that I had to. I mean, I had to do fucking homework sitting in a chair beside a bed for the best part of a year. I didn't graduate on time. It took me another year because I was going through a bunch of shit in my life, and it was I did not handle it well either. At no point should anyone think that I'm the victim here. I was a witness to the person actually suffering, and I was an absolute unbearable mess of a human being during all of this as well. So it was. I'm this is not for sympathy or empathy or anything. I'm just saying, be aware of your target audience when you are going to adapt anything as heavy as this. For example, we were talking about religious horror. I don't really lean on that too hard in my campaigns because I know that Dan is very religious, and any religious horror that I do is going to be strictly D&D iconography and imagery, and I'm not going to rely on people being crucified as part of my religious horror, because I don't think that's appropriate with a Christian at my table. So whereas Dan fucking loves horror movies, I'm sure he would be perfectly fine, but it's never come up into session 0. I'm not going to apply it, right? So
yeah, I mean, it's just you know your audience. You've played with these folks for years. Like you can't imagine going into like a table, not having that session 0, and then having all these things come up. You'd be like, well, I'm out of here. Peace out. Like,
yeah.
Well, let's try and lift it up with the next question, because we're moving on to Fall of the House of Usher, which very uplifting. So which characters from the Fall of House of Usher were your favorite, and which would you feel comfortable turning into NPCs for your home game with minor changes? For me, it's 100% Arthur Gordon Pym, aka the Pym Reaper. That wasn't my answer. That was actually King of Rot's favorite. I loved this one. Fall of the House of Usher was the one that I finally got Elwyn to watch, and then she snowballed from there, because of course it follows storylines from Edgar Allan Poe. Elwyn loves Edgar Allan Poe, so I was like, you would fucking die. You need to watch this. And something I literally just learned the other day after like chatting with Elwyn about it was that Verna, which is the weird mysterious woman from like the past or whatever, she takes form of a raven, and Verna is an acronym for anagram for raven.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I didn't fucking put that together until
really?
Until I was thinking about that like today. Like
oh god, I picked up on that immediately. That's so funny. But then again, I was waiting for Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven to be a thing for the entire thing, right? So
no, but I think this one reignited my love for all of the actors as well. Like, remember how we were talking about how like Hill House, we had solid characters that we fell in love with, and then Casey, you and I agreed that when we went to Bly Manor, we weren't as attached to them because you're trying to watch them be different people.
Yeah,
they were so different in this one. Every actor played a completely different character, and it was awesome to watch them be different people. It was almost like watching a D&D campaign where they rocked up with brand new characters ready to go, and like were just immersed in their characters and were able to play them right away, right? And I love all of them. I would use all of them in my, because they were all so vastly different. Like you have your one of the brothers obviously was like a pompous materialist, and like one of the sisters was all about beauty and all of these things, right? Like they had such defining characteristics that they would be any of them would be easy to make into an NPC. But like the father at the very beginning, who is where all our monologues come from for this one, would make a great quest giver, and like not necessarily knowing his history, but you're doing his business and his bidding, and you find a little bit more about the history through him, kind of thing. I would reskin his character in my campaigns, but I can't remember what the father's name is.
Roderick.
Thanks, guys.
I am obsessed with Bruce Greenwood. I think he's great in fucking everything. So
fantastic.
Like,
yeah. I also like I agree. The Pym Reaper, he was great. Well, and I love Mark Hamill too. So I loved seeing him play a character like this. It was like it actually took a bit to realize it was Mark Hamill. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like so good. And I don't know, I agree, they all brought such fucked up character, like they're all in the same family, yet they all brought such a fucked up spin to what they were fixated on. Had their dynamic between each other. Easily all of them could be NPCs. I can't pick either. They were all just like so terrifying and cool, and yeah, just so messed up.
I love them all. There's not a bad, even Perry, who's just a fucking shit, was so entertaining to watch. So like, I don't know, I'm all for it. I think Roderick, the father, was the most compelling out of all of them, because he was tortured from minute one.
Yeah.
And it was the story of his torture, watching everything burn down around him. It makes me want to play with curses in a way that D&D doesn't really support in 5th edition, because fuck, just the cursed bloodline is so cool.
You love a good cursed bloodline.
Yeah, tell me more, Megan.
God damn it. All right, what are your thoughts on the character of Death in the Fall of House of Usher? And does your homebrew campaign include a similar character? In brackets, Adam does not have to answer this question if he doesn't want to, because of the Pantheon series on Patreon. I know, right? Visually, I thought it was a little like because I'm imagining it's the long blonde-haired girl with the mask with the red cloak or whatever, like that visual of Death is like, I thought a little bit off-putting at first, because I was like, why this? Why is this the visual that you chose out of all the options that you could have gone through, right? But at the end of the day, I thought it was really cool. And I thought a lot of the deaths were very, fuck, I'm really bad at movies today. Final Destination, where
Oh yeah, yeah.
Where you think it's going to go one way and it goes in a completely different way, like that whole aspect of like, but they also have the ability to kind of predict what is going to happen. So this series did kind of play on my love for Final Destination, mixed in with like giving it a kind of new twisty twist, because you know that they all die. You're just learning the stories, so you're just trying to see. You are waiting to see what happens for their death, right?
Yeah.
It's like this. It's like a suspense for their death, because you know it's going to happen and they don't escape it, right? So like the acid raining.
Oh my God.
At the rave party.
Best one.
Absolutely crushed that death scene, because like you get like the schlepping of people's skin, you get all that body horror, you got suspense, it was just such a well done death scene, which is weird to say, but like, because Casey and I are on the Undead series, we talk about body horror on a regular basis. If you want to talk body horror and understand what we mean by like schlepping sounds and schlepping skin, like that scene is all you have to watch. Yeah.
The word you're looking for is degloved.
Degloved, yes. We talked about degloving recently on an episode and I lost it. I was like, ew.
Yeah, I loved that. I think we are going to talk about death scenes more in like a hot second.
Yeah.
But the character of Death, what I appreciated was that she changed her look as she was like honing in on who was dying next.
Mm-hmm.
Like when she's in the mansion that's going to be demolished, she has like a hard hat on and she's like, oh, like what was his name? Frederick. It's like, hey, Frederick.
Yeah.
And it was just creepy as fuck, because it was a game to her. It was like, you can't escape this. This is next. And so she just like, she changed her style and how she looked enough that she, could have been missed amongst the crowd. And then she just walks through and no one notices, but of course the family member does and sees her everywhere, but she morphs herself.
Yeah.
That made her more scary than just the same image every time. Like she had her classic image, but then you were thrown because she changed that depending on who she was honing in on.
Yeah. And I think that's why I started to like her more and more as like the episodes went on, because you got to see that character evolve. It wasn't just a static character that existed for the purpose of we need a representation of death. It was infiltrated the story. Again, immersive, right? For her character. But yeah. What about you, Adam?
I love it when death is a shape changer.
Yeah.
Death is not a shape changer in our campaign. It's very clear that we have the Angel of Death, who is actually one of the player characters from a previous campaign who stepped into the role and who you guys have interacted with a number of times now in this campaign. But he always appears as himself. And there have been mentions of the fact that he appears as different people, but we have never interacted with that because you guys are the chosen ones. You get to see him in his true form, right? Like we haven't really dealt with that. And the goddess of death herself, I mean, well, you guys have now laid eyes upon her hand at the end of the last session that we played. She has no need to be a shape changer. However, death, a reaper as someone who shapeshifts is fucking amazing. I love it every time I see it in media. And in this particular version of having a character of death, she's got to be probably one of my top 3 or 4 favorites on television ever. Both the Sandman episode and that dealt with death as a character, and Death and Supernatural is so fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys ever watch Supernatural?
Elwyn tells me all the time. What are they called? They're death people. Are they reapers? What are they? They actually have a name, don't they?
There are some reapers, but also the embodiment of death, the 4 horsemen.
Yes.
Death, the horseman appears, and he is just fucking perfect for someone playing death. I don't know. I fucking love the fact that she was halfway between a shapeshifter and a devil making deals, like a crossroads demon almost.
Yeah.
You know, and also at the same time she was, you know, the personification of the concepts of death, right? Which is, I don't know, very, very fucking cool. I liked it. Had I started a new campaign that focused on a reaper of some sort, this would have been an inspiration for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Which does bring us into our next question. Do you think that the story of the Fall of House of Usher could work as a D&D campaign? I think it could. Again, a lot of these TV series that we're talking about deal with time hopping, which can be a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea if you're doing a really short campaign that's very specific to learning about people's back. Like we're currently playing in a game right now called Printweaver, where death happens regularly. And when you die, you're brought back and you have to go and find your body. What is it called? Not demon slayers, demon souls or Dark Souls style, where you have to go find your body to get your stuff back, or your body becomes a big bad evil thing. So the way we started that campaign was we all died and we all actually got to talk about our memory of how we all died. And then we all met by being raised at the same time. So like our session 1 was telling our death story, which I thought was really neat. And I think that it almost reminds me of the Fall of the House of Usher, of the fact that like we will all eventually die and we know how we are going to, but what we do from here until then is, I think, a fun story to tell, right?
That is interesting. I can't imagine doing that campaign. I think there's lots of pieces that you could use as inspiration in a D&D campaign. Megan, you're pretty close to how you could somewhat duplicate this storyline in a D&D campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. But I'm going to defer because I'm coming up short on this one. I think you two can be the inspiration on this question.
I don't want to play it as a D&D campaign. As a matter of fact, I don't want to play any of the ones we've talked about as a D&D campaign. Except for the Midnight Club, which I don't think is appropriate anyway. All 4 of them should be Call of Cthulhu games.
Oh.
Yeah.
They just fit better with the mechanics and the world and the dread and the slow investigation of what is truly happening. Feels better Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Eldritch Horror. Yeah. Because then you could get really deep into like gods and religious trauma of not just Christianity, right? Like you can play on anything that you want and use the actual demonology of D&D in it, right?
Yeah,
so.
and you can explore haunted houses a lot easier with more dread as a Call of Cthulhu character, right? So I don't know. I just think that it suits it better than D&D. Could I play this as D&D? Yeah. I would rather just make it I would rather adapt it for Call of Cthulhu. So that's my answer.
I hear you. All right. We did talk about, I think we all said what our favorite death scene is, but the actual question now is, what was your favorite death scene? And who do you think had it coming the most? My favorite death scene is definitely the one with like the schlepping off. I'm trying to remember some of the other ones.
Well, there was the oldest son who got fucking cut in half.
Yeah.
When he went back into the I think it was the factory. There was, I don't remember what happened with Goldbug. That was the one with the Bev character. She's playing Tamerlane now. And she has like the product release that isn't going well. She's hallucinating, but I don't remember how she dies in that one. Telltale Heart was, the tragedy, the
Oh, the beating the fake heart. Yeah.
Then there was the Black Cat, which I think was the worst. And then actually my favorite, if you don't mind me skipping ahead, is the Murder at the Rue Morgue, where it was the chimp.
Oh, it was such a weird one. Like it suspended my belief in what was happening, but like was a pretty good episode. You know what I mean? Like
I've read the original Murder at the Rue Morgue, and the whole premise of that is that people keep dying and they don't know why they keep getting their throats slashed. And in the original story, it's actually an orangutan who has escaped from a traveling circus and who has seen through the window men shaving with the straight razor, and the orangutan is just trying to replicate that by shaving these men, but he just slashes their faces and throats to bits, right? Then panics and leaves, and nobody understands. Like the whole story's from like a detective standpoint, trying to figure out who can be so brutal and how do they get into locked rooms. And it's this orangutan coming into the window of the Rue Morgue, which is either an apartment building or a hotel. It's been a while since I've read it. So seeing this, fucking amazing, especially in the heels of do you guys see Nope?
Yeah.
No.
Love me some traumatizing chimp violence.
So good.
Anyways, sorry, Casey, I jumped ahead of you.
No, that's perfectly fine. I also recently watched Fall of the House of Usher, and like I think I'm going to rate this somewhat how Mieka might rate things in the sense that it's Frederick's death when he paralyzes himself because his cocaine is now not cocaine and he is paralyzed laying on the ground. Like I actually can't watch that scene. Like it's so disturbing, and like it's so horrifically drawn out, and then like I have to cover my eyes when it actually starts hitting him, and like then that makes it worse because you hear the schlepping, you hear the slicing, and I like it's so horrific that I guess it's not necessarily my favorite because it's like, oh my god, it was so awesome. It's because it was so horrific that it rates high for me. It's that like I can't unsee it. I wish I actually didn't see it the first time because it is now in my brain and I can't watch it again. Like when it's that scene or that episode, like I can't watch it. I have to like cover my eyes and just let it happen or move or skip ahead and be like, yes, I know it's awful.
How did you handle the Saw movies?
Same way.
Never seen them, she says.
Fair enough.
Yeah, couldn't do it. Pillow in front of face.
So funny. All right, that is technically it for the 20 questions, but we do have a bonus question before we wrap up. So what other directors, shows, and or films would you recommend to fans of Mike Flanagan's work? I was trying to think of other like horror ones that I enjoy, but like the only director that I like look for when a new movie comes out is Baz. They're the ones that does like Romeo and Juliet, Moulin Rouge, like all those like artsy-ish ones.
Yeah, Baz Luhrmann.
Yeah, like his work is just, I don't care what anybody says. I fucking love, like Romeo and Juliet is, I could watch that movie all day, every day. Moulin Rouge, I will sing to it constantly. Like it just, two of my favorite ones. So if his name is on things, I will be more enticed to watch them. But yeah, do you guys have any other famous ones or other shows to recommend?
Casey, you're next.
That's me. I was just trying. He has a new one coming out very soon, and now I can't fucking remember. But there's a preview for it, and I'm gonna be annoyed. But he's coming out with something new, Megan, very soon.
Oh, really?
Yes, I am so sure.
I'm gonna start Googling.
That is a really good one. I just watched Moulin Rouge with Brent like last weekend because he had never seen it. I was like, what? So we did that. Wow. So what stuck in my mind was I'm going blank now. The series with Lady Gaga, that it was her, we already mentioned it.
American Horror Story.
American Horror Stories, yes. I can't, who makes those ones?
Oh, it's the same team that made Glee. I can never remember their names because, to quote Mieka, I don't respect them. So
Googling it right now. The creative producers Ryan Murphy and Brad Falchuk.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
So I started to watch Glee and couldn't stand it. And so I never watched Glee. But I loved the first, we'll say like 3 seasons of American Horror Story. It got a bit too much later on, but I thought it was unique and very interesting when I first saw like season 1, and I did enjoy a few more seasons. I tried to power through for the sake of I'm one that wants to complete things. I really tried to keep with and watch all of the seasons of American Horror Story, but I couldn't. I couldn't get on board with all of the seasons, but
Yeah, there's a few that I couldn't quite get. There was like the circus one was one I couldn't do.
yeah.
And weirdly enough, the witchcraft one was one that I couldn't get through either. Like the Coven or whatever that one was.
I didn't mind that one.
Yeah.
That was, I think, like season 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a notable one. I also, again, maybe similarly, I really enjoyed the beginnings of like M. Night Shyamalan or Shyamalan.
Shamamalamalan.
Yeah, like I was enthralled in those because, again, like you were talking about Megan before, in the classic Signs, you do not see the like aliens for a long time.
Yeah.
You get glimpses, but you are like 3/4 of the way through the show before you actually see what they look like, and that adds to the horror and the scariness of that show. And so he will always have a place in my like interest in watching thrillers and horrors. I must say I don't watch all of his stuff because I think he did go a bit awry.
Yeah, but
his beginning stuff I thought was awesome.
And I mean, if we're just talking about like other like good series to watch, necessarily based on director, like if you haven't watched Sandman, just fucking watch it.
Yeah.
And then the one that we all just finished binging that we were chatting about in the ladies chat, Chaos. Holy fuck.
Guys, no spoilers. No spoilers. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I'm not going to get a chance for a couple of months now. Stuff, but it's so high on my list. Jeff Goldblum is so fucking great.
Oh my God. Yes. So good.
Anyways, Adam, pop off. I'm sure you have a laundry list.
Buckle up. Here it fucking
go.
comes.
Okay. I'm muting myself for 20 minutes. I'll be right back. Just kidding. Pop off, gang.
All right. So first of all, I want to address American Horror Story because it was my number one thing that people should watch. But to go through them, I haven't seen all of them, but Murder House was fine. It's going to set the tone for how everything else is done, but the pacing is fucking weird and they pack too much shit into it. If you watch some of the other ones first, you'll appreciate Murder House better. That was season 1. Season 2 is Asylum, which I think is probably one of the stronger ones, although it did start the trend of them singing a whole bunch in American Horror Story shows. So that was fucking weird. Also, it's both aliens and the devil. A lot going on in Asylum. I liked Coven because it was one of the most cohesive storylines, and it's probably the closest that we're going to get to what we're talking about today, which is the Flanagan shows. Just because there was a definitive beginning, middle, and end, and they weren't dragging too many other weird side plots into it. It was one cohesive story. Freak Show was the circus one. You could skip it. It was balls. Hotel was really good. It is another one of these ones that has a cohesive beginning, middle, and end. And it is very much a haunted house story as well, which is really cool. I like Roanoke. I might be the only person that does. I thought the idea of it being well, I don't want to say too much about it. I thought it was neat. I bailed on Cult because I didn't want to dig through another American political landscape again. It was a little much at the time because it was right around the 2016 presidential election and it had just a lot of commentary, which I thought was unnecessary. Apocalypse
that's hard.
Was distracted and fucking weird, and that's when I bailed on it. I didn't watch 1984 because I watched Fear Street on Netflix instead to get the same vibe, and I think
so good.
Fear Street probably did it better.
Yeah.
When it comes to Flanagan himself, he did a bunch of movies first, and it's worth pointing out that he did Oculus, and he also did Ouija Origin of Evil. I will go out on a limb here and say the first Ouija movie was pretty shit. Like, I wouldn't fucking bother. Origin of Evil, way fucking better. And I was surprised, and I didn't understand why. I now know.
Yeah.
right? It's because Mike Flanagan was involved in it. He
I
also
would
did,
like, sorry, I just wanted like, well, I just made my friend watch Oculus like 3 days ago.
yeah,
I forgot how fucking good that movie was.
right?
Like, it's just so well done.
It has
Like,
no reason being that fucking good.
no notes, no notes. Watch
Yeah.
it.
The next thing that he did was Gerald's Game, which is one of my least favorite Stephen King movies. He made this bearable for me. I knew the story already, and again, I'm not wild about the story in the first place, but I quite enjoyed it. He also did Doctor Sleep, and I think that The Shining and Doctor Sleep, which is a sequel to it, different directors, different actors, very different vibes, but they're both great movies in and of themselves, and they're both worth mentioning in this conversation. It especially because The Shining is a slow burn, like we get in some of his series, right? It's also worth pointing out that you should watch The Exorcist and The Exorcist 2. That one is surprisingly good for some reason. And Mike Flanagan's next upcoming project is another Exorcist movie. He's in pre-production for it right now. So I mentioned before that The Exorcist is really good for these like in the moment, not letting you breathe, dragging you in, like with the monologues and stuff. I am so excited for whatever this brings. I think that the Final Destination movies that you mentioned, Megan, are a great addition to this conversation. Anything Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, Cabinet of Curiosities, these anthology shows are going to be good for a little taste here and there of what Mike Flanagan has to offer. I'd suggest reading a lot of Stephen King stuff. If you want cults and stuff, Rosemary's Baby is great. Jacob's Ladder is another one that I highly recommend to people. That one comes with a pretty solid mind fuck in it, though, and not meant for people who have personal experience with PTSD. So I'll put that little disclaimer on it. I think the Alien franchise, except for Aliens, which is the worst of the group of them, come at me in the comments, are all fucking great because they also do this shit in the dark. We don't know what it is. There's religious iconography all the way through it, which gives you that religious horror, and it's just dread if you sit down and think about it from the perspective of the characters. I fucking love Alien Romulus. I had a great time in that. Yeah, like there are a lot of older horror movies that are worth checking out. I'm trying to think. Like, if you want your religious horror, you go to The Omen, but it's going to be cheesy now. Or Children of the Corn. The first one was actually kind of scary-ish a little bit. But it was another one of these like religious leader monologues, and everyone else buys it hook, line, and sinker and goes in, right? I'm going to be sitting here for the rest of the day going,
Oh yeah.
oh, and this, oh, and that, right?
Every time you mention was I think of more like, did you ever watch Ratched? The one about the nurse?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So good. So good.
Yeah, another great show that's like it takes its time, it does it right. I think like there are other shows that are quiet, like Hannibal, right, which is a slow horror movie dread, but that doesn't feel like the Mike Flanagan stuff. If you can find the old made for TV mini series called Storm of the Century, written by Stephen King, it feels a lot like Midnight Mass as well. There is a lot of Stephen King stuff. To see that he did both Gerald's Game and Doctor Sleep makes a lot of fucking sense to me, because he clearly loves the story structure and the characterization that Stephen King puts into his novels. So I don't know, like I've got a lot of good shit to say.
Yeah. I'm gonna out myself a little bit of like a don't hurt me, but I actually watched Doctor Sleep not knowing it was connected to The Shining.
I think a lot of people did. I think that was pretty common. Yeah.
And like my brothers were just like, did you watch it? I'm like, it was great. I had no idea it was connected. She's like, how did you not know that? I'm like, I don't fucking know. I just didn't know that. And you don't really make that connection until near the end. Right. No. So it was a twisty twist for me because I just did not see that coming, but it's just me.
You want to know it's a horror movie trilogy. There's more than just the first three, but there's a lot in there is in the first three that's going to feel like Mike Flanagan is going to be the Paranormal Activity, as you slowly reveal what's going on with his family and why they're being haunted in the ways that they are, right? And how it all comes together with a big, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but the third movie is such a departure from the first two. Like, as you're actually like working through this family's history through the first three movies. That was a lot of fun. I wouldn't say a lot of the A24 stuff is, but a lot of it's good.
Yeah, there's some hit and misses in there though. Like,
yeah, if you want that creeping dread, the Babadook, It Follows, right? If you want.
Was it? Did we make Mieko watch It Follows? Was that?
Yeah, Megan, you and I sat there with her,
Yeah.
and she fucking screamed the whole time, and I thought she was going to like bury herself behind you on the couch.
It was so good.
Yeah.
I love watching horror movies with people that are legitimately afraid of them.
Also, this is why I want all of us to get together and watch The Haunting of Hill House with Mieka, because she has such issues with it. And it's so visually dark, you have to turn the lights off to be able to see some parts of it. And so I feel like a room full of people around her might give her the courage. Also, maybe liquor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we'll bring some Fireball in and we'll make that happen. We got this. Yeah.
I'm not laughing at her. I want her to legitimately watch it and love it. But I think that there's gonna have to be like damage control done.
Well, as a creative writer, like she's a writer, right? Like it just like it's one of those ones that you just kind of have to watch. And I want her to also watch. Did you watch Fall of the House of Usher? I think that's one that you did make her watch, wasn't it?
That's the only one. I don't know if she watched Midnight Mass with me,
Yeah.
but I know she watched Fall of the House of Usher.
Yeah,
And,
she watched Midnight Mass with you because she's talked about fuck that show.
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm hearing it now in my head, and like yeah.
Like I'm sure the first time she saw what we'll call it, the angel, I can just see Mieka going, "Oh hell no!"
Yeah. She
all
likes
the disrespect.
She likes to stand up and punch a fist into her hand and scream at the TV, especially when she's scared or something gross happens.
So good. Anyways, we could be here forever.
All right, let's wrap it up. But before we do, I want to include the kind words from King of Rot, who said the following. I'd like to thank you all so much for the work you do on the podcast. You've been my favorite podcast for almost 4 years now because your guys' work is an endless well of inspiration and fun. I'd like to thank Adam for pouring so much of himself into the podcast. That takes balls, or I'll be honest, just a lack of a filter. I'd like to congratulate you and Mieka as much as that means from a stranger on the internet. Thank you so much. It means the world from everybody. And most of the people I know are bored with this concept of the wedding at this point because I won't shut the fuck up about it.
Yeah.
So,
it's gonna be our first social media campaign is the Adam and Mieka wedding.
He says, I'd also like to thank Megan for all the work she does on the Undead Giants, L5R, and other series. You bring so much energy and laughter to every episode you're on. It's simply amazing. Also, I love your art. So good.
Aww.
I'd also like to send love to all the other mimics that I steal ideas from. Y'all are great. Everyone on the Discord is also amazing, and I can't wait to join the Great Worm Council once I get a job and have the money for it. My God, I appreciate every one of the Great Worms, but like that is not fucking necessary. That's an exorbitant amount of money, and my jaw hits the floor whenever somebody signs up for that. Don't make that a fucking goal. Live your life. Go buy minis. There are D&D books to buy. Jesus.
We're not that funny.
Yeah, I appreciate the love and support, and it means the world to me. And it also allows me to actually pay everyone who does art and music and website and editing and everything else. They get little bonuses at Christmas and stuff because of this. But for the most part, like, Jesus, just live your best life, man. So we're just a group of idiots. Me especially, and Dan. Fuck that guy. Anyway, do we have any final thoughts before we wrap this up? No, I could just end on fuck that guy. And
Cool. Absolutely. That's where we can end it. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to another round of mailbag questions on the It's a Mimic channel. If you'd like to ask us questions that we'll definitely answer no matter what, you can reach out to us through the mailbag post in the subreddit on r/It's a Mimic. Hit us up through Facebook or Instagram, send us a message through the website, or join our Patreon, which has a Discord channel dedicated to mailbag questions.
It's first come, first served, so get those answers in ASAP. We already have a handful of overflow questions for the next mailbag in 3 months.
And again, thanks for listening and supporting us at It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.
A ska band last night.
What is it, 1997?
Right?
Jesus.
I was thrown back to Clueless, actually. That's what it reminded me of, was Clueless. But it was really awesome. It was like a 9 or 10 piece ska band.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's
there was
impressive. Anything above 6 is
all-
impressive. Yeah.
I know. But it didn't start until midnight. So
Oh.
what the fuck? I'm not at the age where that's okay.
Whose idea was a midnight ska band?
It was my friends, and then Brent and I joined her in going, and there
Nice.
was like 4 like other bands opening, but we were going for the main event, and we went like at like 10:30 thinking, well, maybe they'll be on at like 11:30. No. 11:58 they
Ugh.
start. I'm like, oh, okay, I could do this.
Was it a big crowd? Like, what was the venue?
It was, oh God, what did I do? It was a tiny venue called the Cobalt on Main Street, and there was probably like 50 people in the crowd.
Nice.
Cobalt. Why
Yeah.
does that sound so familiar? I don't know.
It sounds like cobalt, but isn't.
It is like
I-
the color cobalt.
Yeah. When you Google it, you just get metals.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I know where that is. What a weird place.
Yeah, it's this random venue. Like there's no other venues really in that area, but then there it
Yeah.
is. And it's this tiny thing. Super divey.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kill my video because I'm already starting to tell that I'm gonna lag.
Sure. Do you want us to kill our videos too, or
Yeah, that's probably best.
fine? I'll talk to the ether.
Okay.
It's like a phone call, Megan.
I hate it.
Who does those?
Any questions about this? Are we ready to go?
This is my first one like this. Well, because we did the group The Mummy, but that wasn't necessarily like this. So
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same idea. It's just like essentially we're gonna get distracted by how hot people are and things.
That's true.
That's what we did
Yeah.
on The Mummy. It's also what we did on Game of Thrones, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. We just objectified everybody in the show, and that's all it was.
fair. I can do that.
That is a thing that I can do, she says.
Right back into my comfort zone.
Yeah. Don't mind if I do.
Yay! We
Yay.
did it.
I'm turning this back on so I can see your faces. It's so discombobulating not being able to see you guys and like feel like I'm talking to you. Like it just
I know. I'm like,
I want you to know that at like 1:00 in the morning last night, I stood up from my desk and like cracked every like vertebrae in my back. And I turned around and I stepped in my apartment and I went, oh fuck, I'm gonna have people over tomorrow, expecting that we were gonna record this in person because my tired brain thought that. And I deep cleaned my house until 3:30 in the morning.
I know. But now your house is clean.
No, my house is clean, which I needed to do before I go disappear for 4 months out of it, right? So
Yeah.
it was on my to-do list. But like I got an angry text from my landlord at 7 a.m. asking me why I'm fucking vacuuming. And I'm like, because
None of your business. Get bent.
So yeah, I really thought we were going to be doing this in person. As a matter of fact, I have a couple of bowls and a ladle for you, Casey. From
you
the
do?
pig roast. Yeah.
No.
all right, I'll let Brent know they have now migrated to your house at least.
There you go.
Yeah, but he's not going to get them now until January, right? So
Fair.
Yes, as long as they stick around and you don't end up forgetting who had them.
All right, team. I gotta go. Ellen's gonna be here any minute. I'm not wearing pants. So
There. We did it. Oh my gosh.
very proud.
Okay.